welcome back to episode 2 of the Bolt Gaming Podcast. I'm NoSleeves, joined by my good man Tymo from the Baker and Tymo Show. Man, we've got a lot to talk about. We've got the new consoles released. We've got some NHL patch stuff, so let's get right into it. Let's start off with your thoughts on the launch of the next-gen consoles. I mean, today is PlayStation 5's launch, so not much we can do about that, but the Xbox side, just give me your thoughts and whatnot on how the launch has gone and what you're looking at specifically.
My thoughts vary because, for one, I'm very jealous. You know what I mean? I can't afford to go out there and buy a brand new console right now. So, part of me is extremely jealous. But in the same fact, I do think that people are probably better to wait a little bit on new consoles. We've seen in the past that issues arise. Obviously, we saw the smoking Xboxes, which I'm doing in air quotes, which you can't see because that proved not to be true. But I still think that, there's going to be some...
Xbox.
Exactly, yeah. The fact that they actually put out a tweet saying, don't blow smoke into your Xboxes is crazy. But yeah, I don't know. I'm happy that the new consoles are out. But that being said, I think I'm pretty much going to wait until there's a game out that I'm desperately dying to play, like Cyberpunk, when that finally drops. So for now, I'm jealous of people that do have them, but in the same time, I'm not too anxious to get one just yet. I'm just excited for the future.
No, absolutely. Obviously, we main playing NHL, and obviously this year we're not getting an NHL game specifically made for the next gen consoles. But we can discuss how it plays in the next gen system. I was able to get my Xbox One yesterday or 2 days ago, whatever the day of launch was.
Lucky guy.
And was able to play NHL on it. I'm not gonna lie, I'm a Sony guy basically since I've been alive. PlayStation 1 was my first real system, and I've always chose PlayStation over Microsoft. But the 360 was far better than the PS3, but the PlayStation 4 absolutely dominated the Xbox One, in my opinion, just in sales and first party games and whatnot. But the launch of Xbox One, Xbox Series X, I did a comparison. I do have the Series X. I think that the one thing before we get into that is the price points on both these systems. So the Xbox obviously has the Series X, which is their big boy system, which is quite expensive, and then they have the Series S, which is like their smaller edition, a little bit more affordable. I think that Sony definitely has a leg up in that sense, because what they did was they kept the processing power and everything the same on both systems, on their cheaper edition and more expensive edition. They just removed the disc tray on the cheaper one. And in my opinion, in 2020, there isn't very many games that I go out and buy a physical copy of, especially as a streamer, because usually you're buying it for that first day as early as possible, not waiting for it to get delivered or anything like that. So I think that the $100 off that price for the digital edition has been a really big success for PlayStation. We'll see how it plays out. But your thoughts on that, man?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, I'm actually a little bit jealous in that aspect because I do plan on sticking with Xbox. It's just where all my good friends play and everything. So that's, kind of where I'm sticking. But it's for me, who's a guy on a budget, it's sad to me that I don't even want to consider buying the Xbox Series S. I just don't think it's enough of a console. If you're going to go for the new gen, you have to go big. If you're going for the Xbox and buy the Series X, personally, that's the way I think you have to go, because otherwise I just don't think you're actually getting that full next gen experience. So, for me, I am a little bit jealous as an Xbox guy that PlayStation, I think, did it right with their digital version of the console, because I'm the same way. Obviously, beyond being a streamer, even before I started streaming, I've been off of that train of buying physical games for a long time, because I hate that you have to have the disc in. I understand why, but I hate that you have to do it. I don't ever, return a game or even, try to trade it in, because the value's lost immediately, like a car that you're driving off the lot. So, yeah. You know what I mean? I am jealous of the guys that are going with the PlayStation. Why was it just, are you buying the Xbox out of necessity? Could you not get the PS5 right now, or you have that too?
The pre-order that I did this thing that everyone did. I had 4 browsers open trying to get whatever one was, available to me. And I finally was able to get one on Walmart, and it worked. And obviously when it comes to the Xbox, I had the exact same thoughts as you. There's no point in buying the smaller one if it is going to be, main console, or I play video games for a living now. So I went with the bigger one there. I was able to get it on PlayStation. I got it at Best Buy, but my pre-order got canceled. So I kind of got stuck. So today my buddy was actually able to get one for me, though. So nice. I think it's the disc version, which I'm actually kind of annoyed about, because I don't care about the disc version, but it's just whatever was available. So the extra cost is whatever. You just kind of got to bite that. But Yeah, it was the PlayStation again with that pre-orders. The pre-orders were all over the place for both consoles in my opinion, but I was able to get both now, thank God. But I'm excited to try the PS5. I'm not gonna lie, I think that the look of it is just not a W, not a win. They tried to go abstract for it, and I like the look of the Xbox Series X. Like I've got it like laid down, we're just in my where I have it in my desk,
Yeah.
and it looks really nice. It actually lays down really well. It's a brick essentially, but let's talk about some things that we've seen. Like I did a video recently, right when I got the console, just to test out. Like obviously we play NHL 21 is like that's our main game. That's what we play the most of. So obviously our interest is going to go there. So immediately the first thing I did was I know there's no graphical comparison or graphical upgrades or gameplay upgrades. Everyone asks that is like, is there an advantage? There isn't at all. The one major advantage though is the load time. So I did a video where side by side I started up the games at the exact same time in the home menu, and I ran it all the way through, and then I went into Hockey Ultimate Team and then loaded that up and then hit play game and to see where they would, the time difference. And it was like a minute and 20 seconds faster to start the game up, get into it. And now that might sound a lot, but if you think about like just your tasks that you're doing, like I checked the auction house, listing and checking the auction house is so much faster. And when I played Xbox, this last generation, that's the one thing that Sony, in my opinion, like really did a fantastic job of in comparison to Xbox. It's just the speed of the menus seemed really laggy on Xbox compared to PlayStation. I always felt it was snappier, but they've addressed that because this console is super powerful. It's felt really, really crisp and quick. Anything that you do with a controller is being input really fast on even on an older game, an older gen game in NHL 21. So I'm excited to try it, but you're right about the games kind of being the one that's going to drive, when you want to buy the console. I'm not gonna lie, other than NHL 21 and the fact that I play video games for a living, there isn't really a huge advantage of me buying the new consoles or getting them early. But Valhalla has my interest. I've liked Assassin's Creed, like one or two of them. I'm not a big Assassin's Creed truther. I played Unity, I think, all the way through. It was an incredible game. So I'm excited to try that out and just see the power of these consoles, as well as Demon's Souls on PlayStation looks pretty interesting. But again, I don't know if like those aren't games that are going to just pull me in. Like you said, Cyberpunk is going to be pretty fantastic though. You said that you had spoken to someone that was on the new console that was in franchise mode for NHL specifically. I haven't tried any offline modes. What was that like?
Well, there's a video floating around out there of a guy that threw up a comparison video, kind of like what you did for the startup, but basically what he was doing was simming to just before the trade deadline on both consoles. He tried it with the PS4 Slim as well as the new Xbox, and basically what we saw was a pretty big difference. I mean, we're talking 3 minutes, so that's to me like more than 3 times faster. That's huge. And like you were saying, even like small things like going to the auction house, like these are big quality of life improvements for people who are playing these games all the time. I think time is a commodity and one of the only ones that we really can't control in life. So I think these things might seem like small things right now, but I think they truly are, bigger advancements. It's pretty cool even to see like old games like The Witcher. They don't know what to do now because for load times for fast travel, you just kind of like poof, you're there. Like you just appear and you're there, So it's kind of funny.
No, absolutely, man. Like that's like the one thing we're kind of blessed with. This is I can't remember a console launch in which I've been this excited to see, because we're essentially getting like 1080 60 frames a second on a console, which is just like obviously never been done, but like those are like PC specs for this, for like, like low end PC, but like that's the first time it's ever been even somewhat close. I remember I used to play Destiny pretty much religiously. It's how I started streaming and whatnot. And on console, I tried it on PC when Destiny 2 came out and it was the first release of it, and it was just like I could never play console again. Because like the graphics are fine like that, you know what I mean? A console graphics, I really don't care about that. It's like the frames, man. When you notice like going from like 120 frames to 30, it is sluggish. Like it's absolutely ridiculous, and it's super hard to go back and forth. But 60, that's a really nice benchmark for these new consoles. So I'm excited to see how that goes. And to be honest, after looking at NBA 2K, the graphics of that game. Like I can't even imagine what the next NHL will look like.
Like for me, like I think the biggest thing for these new consoles in terms of graphical improvements is going to be ray tracing. Like ray tracing, it does a world of good in terms of lighting and shadows, and that's really what's like I don't think we've seen many graphical improvements in NHL say since this generation, just because it's hard to improve upon, right? So I'm hoping that I don't think it'll be like night and day, but like you said with that NBA 2K, I mean there's times when I think if you're watching in a certain camera view, it looks like real life. Like you could fool people at this point, like if they're just like you have it on TV and they're walking by,
Absolutely, man. And like the crazy thing is, like, I'm trying to remember back just like from NHL perspective when they did console, like the last time a generational like jump or a console gen jump, like 2006 or 2007 into NHL 07 for PlayStation 2 and PlayStation 3, like that was insane. I do a stream every year where I play every single game all the way through in one night. When you go through that jump is insane from the PlayStation 2's last game into the PlayStation 3 first game. And when you go from PlayStation 3 to PlayStation 4, there's obviously an improvement just on lighting. You notice it really when you're lining up on the face-off when they do that like overhead shot of it, because you just see the light on the ice, everything like that. But it just looks crisper. I think that this is going to be the biggest graphical jump in quite some time. I'm super excited to see how EA handles that. And same with Madden and FIFA, because those are actually getting Xbox Series X and PlayStation 5.
Yeah, that's right. They're going to actually be ported, right? So.
Yeah, absolutely, man. It's been that one's gonna be nuts. But let's talk about some other things in the NHL landscape, because we did get a franchise mode patch today, as well as talk about the patch that did come out, I believe, last week. Just from a franchise mode perspective and offline perspective, what did those include?
Well, actually, the last patch actually included something for Be a Pro as well, some quality and life improvements in terms of being able to finally request a trade, like I think you were supposed to be able to off the hop, and then just some small fixes as well. And then franchise, they fixed some issues with chemistry, some issues with scouting, and then unfortunately, those fixes actually came with a kind of game-breaking glitch, unfortunately. I think that's kind of the way it goes with development, whether it's any type of coding, you fix something and then something else breaks, and that's unfortunate for us franchise guys. But ultimately, they fixed that today with that. So now when you go to substitute a scratch player, you're not going to have your game freeze on you. And there were ways around it, but I mean, unless you're on Reddit or Twitter all the time, you're not going to know that, right? So I'm glad that
exactly.
Yeah, I'm glad they addressed it quickly. People can complain all they want, but ultimately, I do think that the team's doing a good job of addressing these issues as quickly as possible. So.
Yeah, it's tough because a lot of people that don't again, we're EA Game Changers, so we have the opportunity to see what it's like in the background. And guys, if anyone that is in the NHL community listening, always feel free to message us on Twitter with any bugs and errors and things like that, because that's how a lot of this stuff comes to fruition. Is the Game Changer chats, the guys in their communities, respective communities, send in like clips and whatnot, and that's how it gets addressed for the most part. The patches are not easy. People think that okay, there's this game breaking thing right now. Franchise mode is still the trade value issue is making it I've shied away from franchise mode. I do one every year. Yeah. I get really into it for YouTube, and I just haven't started it yet because I know that there needs to be a firm fix, because I think when franchise mode is fixed, this last issue with trade values, when that's fixed, franchise mode in NHL has the potential to be the best franchise mode of all the sports games.
And
when
honestly,
you think about
I think probably the best franchise that this actual game has ever seen too. And I mean,
for sure,
comparatively to even 14, which everybody upholds as the best NHL that we've ever had, right? So I'm looking forward to it. I think once they, like you said, once they nail that down, I think this is going to be really good. But right now, with a guy like Colton Sissons being having full trade value, there's something really funky going on, and I do hope that they're able to figure it out.
Even if you want to play your own team straight up, right? The CPU is going to value those guys, and you're going to see a Colton Decision for McDavid trade and stuff like that, and that just ruins the experience of franchise mode. So I agree. Once they fix that, then we should be in a bit better shape. I'm excited for that because, again, like I said, it's definitely a fun mode, and they've done a great job with it. But the patches, though, themselves, just how they get implemented, when an issue's been fixed, when an issue's happening, right? They have to essentially nail it down, fix the coding in the game, but then they have to send it off to Sony and Microsoft to get approved, which is usually the hang up and why it takes so long for it to get out there. So that's why sometimes, guys, that there's a little bit of a delay in those extremely known issues. Now, sometimes if it's for Hockey Ultimate Team, I know if there's like one that completely absolutely cripples the market, sometimes they'll try and do everything as fast as they can to get it out and done. But they are trying to get all these issues fixed. It does them no good to let them slide, especially the franchise mode, because it is in such a good spot, and Be a Pro as well. They did such a good job in developing Be a Pro this year. Other than the conversation facts getting a little dry. Did you see? Did you see the Nasher video where it's like asking him to go to a historical museum?
Time and time again, he asked him like 4 times. He's dying. Oh,
that was a great video.
Yeah,
some of the conversations are a little brutal.
They're a little goofy, and like I'm really tired of like these rich guys always like making me pay for everything. Like, what is up with that? Is that something that's common in the NHL? Make the rookie pay for it? Like, come on, Downey.
I guess I know the rookie dinner is always a thing, but after that, I mean, like, dude, you want a hot dog by yourself, man.
You want to go bowling? Like, I'm sure you can cover it. Yeah, like enough of this.
Absolutely.
But yeah.
So those patches, the patch that did address Be a Pro and franchise mode, also came with a gameplay patch for Hockey Ultimate Team and Versus. For anyone that follows that, as that's something I do pretty much exclusively now. It was met with some mixed criticism. The one thing I knew this, I liked the gameplay. I liked it enough where I knew that if something was patched, it's like you said, man, when you fix one thing as a developer in a patch, like, you have the potential to break other things. And when it's gameplay, like I would take the gameplay. So now it seems a little bit slower. The intercepts are a lot higher. So you see a lot of people just sitting in the middle waiting to get the CPU to intercept passes, which didn't happen because everyone was just getting passes through, and if you didn't play man-to-man defense, then you were getting scored on in the backdoor cross ices. And I'm not gonna lie, I preferred the way that it was. I think intercepts being turned up a little bit was the right move. It just, we're seeing a lot of comparisons now from that really fast gameplay from what we had after the launch of this year back to like NHL 20, where
that's kind of what I'm seeing online too. Is a lot of people are talking like, now it feels like NHL 20, and it's like, well, this is what you guys asked for. Like I feel like it's a tough situation for the devs, because I feel like you can't really ever win, because there's this group of people that want this game to be so much like a real life sim, and then there's the people that want it to be more arcadey. There's obviously the people who want it to be right in the middle, but I just think it's really hard to actually find that perfect balance.
Man, since I've been a game changer, which I think it's like 2.5 years now, that has been like the major debate, is that like, if you look at a real hockey game, like it's not all end to end, like just insane moves and whatnot. There's a lot of, I don't want to say dull moments in hockey, but a lot of just getting in the neutral zone, dumping the puck in, like just, you know what I mean? Like, I think that a lot of people don't realize that. And in a hockey, if when you get into the sim portion of it, that's when I think people are like, it's too slow, it's boring, but then when you go full arcadey, like the speed and whatnot, it seemed for wingers specifically in the launch of 21, it seemed pretty quick, and I enjoyed it. I think that was really good. I think that people did adapt, and then when you throw in the fact that now CPUs intercept a little bit more, then you've got people have adapted, so they play better defense from and it's just like you said, it's a very, very tough balance, and something that they're gonna have to work on for sure. So, I'm excited though. The new consoles coming out. I'm excited for that. I cannot wait to see the first game on the next gen consoles.
Yeah, I really like. I hope they nail it this time, because everything that I've read too in terms of like development, apparently it's much easier to develop from this generation of consoles to the next generation than it was last time around. So I'm hoping that bodes well for our dev team in terms of NHL. I'm excited for what's to come. I really hope that we don't have like a stripped down version like we had with 15, because that was obviously,
I don't think that'll ever happen again. I that was it would
probably kill the franchise if it happened again. Honest to God,
it would be pretty tough to come back from. And I think that I agree that like they had such a hard time with the way and the way that they developed the game on the last gen consoles. I think they get a fresh start here. They know what happened with 15, and that can't happen again. They have to make sure that it's a full-fledged game, or you're just going to have riots on social media about it. So I think they are going to make sure that is a priority. I'm curious to see what happens with the real NHL, because I think that the NHL 21 was delayed by about a month. Yep. Now, if the season doesn't start again, if we have it tentatively January 1st, start time for the next season, that's obviously going to run a little bit longer. Is now October the now launch date of NHL? Like,
You
I'm
have to
curious to see
wonder.
how sports games, like, because if not, then that means they have less time to develop the game, which is just on a yearly basis. Like, I've seen again in Vancouver, they go through this process to show you what it's like yearly to develop a game, and it's just like, man,
Well, that's
there's
a big
no
part
time.
of the problem too, right? Like, I don't think sports games should be made on a yearly cycle anymore. I think that's an archaic way of going about it. You can't make enough like graphical improvements, like we've talked about, to actually wow people. So people end up saying, "Look, this is just a roster update," right? And you see it across
the
all.
meme.
Yeah, you see it across all the sports games this year, though. You really do. Like, they were all hampered by one, COVID, I'm sure, and two, the fact that they have to push out this yearly cycle of games. It doesn't make any sense anymore. Like, we should be doing
know,
2 to 3 years with a roster update. You know what I mean? Like, I think, anyways.
I agree. I mean, like, I think that it's tough though from a sales point when you think about, like, just from a
That's
business, like, you know what I mean? Like, that means that they're, you know, as opposed to getting their huge income, you know, what they've allotted for in 1 year in terms of like shareholders and things like that. Now you have to go, like, you saw. So I started playing the Golf Club Pro 2019 in the summertime with Nasher when like things got low, and that was a really fun game, and we got to actually become 2K influencers for the new launch. Yeah, we actually got on the influence, so we got to play
awesome.
PGA 2K21 a little bit early, and play the game and whatnot, and it was a blast. But it was like a year or two before they, you know, released that game, and they got 2K sponsor and a really big, you know, a lot more involvement from the PGA Tour. So they actually had like licensed names and clubs and things like that, and it was a gigantic improvement, and that just is kind of an example of what it was like, you know, to not have to do it every year. Now I'm curious, because 2K is involved and it's a 2K title now.
Yep.
That if they're going to be like, hey, we need PGA 2K22 out, you know, summer of next year, like you can't wait longer. You can't do what you did last time. So I'm curious to see how that goes. But my man, it's been a blast talking new consoles. I'm excited to keep playing it. Yeah, absolutely, man. And guys, make sure that you check out the podcast. You know, every week. We're trying to do this every 2 weeks, I think.
Every 2 weeks. Yep.
Yeah, and we're available on the Rare Drop podcast, as well as on Spotify, Apple, and we're actually on the Tampa Bay Lightning's website as well. So I got to give a shout out to them
for. We made it to the NHL, right? Like, we made it.
We essentially did. Yeah, that's it. We've made it.
We made it.
All right, guys. I'm Cameron. He is Tymo, and we will see you guys in a couple weeks. Have a good one.